And we continue along with our coverage of the Scouting Combine from Indianapolis. Chris is there. I am home. With Chris now, Ohio State receiver Garrett Wilson. Garrett, welcome to the program. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. Appreciate y'all having me.
Fascinating story. Born in Columbus, Ohio, moved to Texas at age 11, and then ends up back in Columbus when it's time to play college football.
Yeah.
Walk us through your decision-making process to go back to your hometown.
Yeah, so like you said, I had some roots up there. I had some family up there, and it was really important that my parents had a good relationship to wherever I was going. So, when Coach Day and Coach Meyer at the time, were the people that were heavily involved in my recruiting, and then I saw how comfortable my parents were with them. It was a decision I felt comfortable making.
A lot of great receivers at Ohio State in recent years, too. How has being around guys like that made you a better player?
Yeah, you really have no choice. It's a competitive room at Ohio State, and if you want to, get on the field and maximize yourself, you're gonna put in the work and take things from all the great players around you that can help your own game. So you really have no choice once you get there.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm from Jersey. I went to the University of Texas.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Man.
Did they give you a good run for your money? Were they even in the mix here? What high school did you go to in Austin?
I went to Lake Travis.
You went to Lake Travis?
Yeah, so not too far outside.
Did they get involved? Apparently we don't recruit the good players in Texas anymore. I don't know what's going on.
No, they got involved. It was just one of those things where it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same relationship that we had at that level with my parents. And
right.
when I saw what Coach Day was doing with the offense at Ohio State, throwing the ball around like they were.
Yeah.
It was Joe Burrow and Dwayne Haskins competing for a starting job at the time. So it was something I wanted to be a part of. Something I wanted to be a part of.
I get you there. I totally get you there. I've asked some of the Alabama guys this. I'm interested to hear you're a competitor. I know you want to be great. Ohio State's great, but like Mike said, you look at all those receivers there and stuff at times. Was there a point early on in your career where you're like, man, maybe I made the wrong decision here. Maybe I'm not going to get on the field. I know you played as a freshman, but do you worry about that aspect when you were coming out?
Like I said, I felt like, I'm really confident in my ability. And, I felt like if I did what I was supposed to do, was able to learn the playbook fast and, have my coaches trust me that I could get on the field early. And, you can't run from competition. At the end of the day, I feel like that made me, the player I am today, because of what I went through, what I had to play with, who I got the opportunity to play with.
Right. Did Mike ask that question first? Did he ask that question?
Yeah,
Did I miss it?
Similar.
It was similar.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
similar.
I was writing down a note about it. My bad, man.
No
Sorry.
worries.
All right. I'm an
Hey, at
idiot.
least he's not eating donuts like he was earlier, Garrett. He was eating donuts earlier, so he's taking a step up.
I saw him in the staff room. I saw him.
Habits. How close did you come to coming back for one more year to Ohio State? And maybe pumping yourself up a little bit, having a huge season, and getting up higher on the draft order for next season.
Yeah, coming into my junior season, it was something I knew I wanted to do. I knew I was maybe going to have this opportunity, to take that next step and finally, chase my dreams in the NFL. And, once I put myself in a good spot, playing-wise throughout the season, stayed healthy for the majority of the season, I felt like I had done what it took to, take that step. And I talked with my teammates about it first, and, it was one of those things where I felt like it was right. So I can't say I, thought about it too much. It was one of those things I can't lie. I came into Ohio State expecting to do 3 years, and, that's one of those things where, luckily I was blessed to have it actually go that way.
What part of your game do you need to step up the most in order to thrive at the NFL level the way you did at the college level?
Yeah, just the consistency on, getting off a press. Seeing longer corners, and like I said, I played a year of slot, and I feel like that was good for my development going back outside this past season, and having less space to work with, and having to get off longer DBs. So that's something I want to continue to work on as I get in the NFL.
You got combine now. You've been doing all this crap, right? As far as all the drills, all that. You doing everything tomorrow?
I'm doing everything except bench press.
Except bench press. Okay, Nobody cares how much a receiver bench presses, so it's no big deal. But all right, so. What are we expecting? Give me some. You're a burner. You can go by people. You'd be between doing that 40 times and what's the hardest event for you that you feel like, damn, that one's a challenge for me that I'm not the best or most natural at.
I feel like when you train for all this for 2 months. It's definitely a lot to it, and it's one of those things. But I feel like I'm ready for every drill. I would be, if I trained for as long as I did for this, these 4 drills. I feel like I was super detailed in my training. Exactly. So I feel good about all these drills coming up. Hopefully I can show off, what I'm able to do.
What, like, you want to throw out some numbers 40 wise? Like what you think you're gonna go there?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people say 4.55, so I'm gonna just say sub 4.45 or sub 4.55.
Yeah, you're gonna crap on all that stuff.
Yeah,
right there.
That's just not the case. So
okay,
I can't wait to run and prove some people wrong for sure.
I could tell you're excited about that. All right, so he's ready to prove people wrong in the 40, Mac. He thinks everybody's wrong, and I can tell by the smirk on his face.
Yeah.
What about your wide receiver coach at Ohio State, Brian Hartline?
Yeah.
Mike talked about like the atmosphere there with Ohio State. I've heard so many times when I would tune into games this year about Brian Hartline, what he does to the receivers, what the room's like. Kind of talk about what it's like to have an ex-NFL good receiver coaching you in college.
Yeah, I mean, he makes it easy to learn. Like you said, he played in the NFL. He's done everything that, we want to accomplish in life, playing at Ohio State as well, having that connection. So, when you look at Coach Hartline, you see someone that's done all the steps you're about to take, and you got to listen. There's no way you'd be stupid not to listen. And then, the way he can teach and actually show you. He's probably 3 or 4 years removed from the league when he first took over the job. So, it made it easy he could run the route. He would always have cleats on, like some type of turf shoes on at practice, and be running around showing us what we're doing.
Often. That's
exactly.
Crazy.
You don't get lucky like that. So, all those things really helped me learn and feel like the whole room for sure.
I bet.
We talked to a lot of receivers today, Garrett, and one of the questions we've asked most of them, who's that defensive back you can't wait to line up across from and show what you can do against him?
There's a lot of great ones. I mean, this past season, Jalen Ramsey's, the best corner in the league, I feel like. And, you got to pay your respects to the best in the league. Those dudes are technicians. That's a tough position to play. It's a lot on mindset, a lot on your mental. And I feel like there's a lot of great ones. I don't want to single out anyone, but I feel like Jalen Ramsey, is the best corner in the league, and is going up against him. I feel like it's going to be like a surreal moment for me, realizing that it's that time. Like this are my rivals now. That type of thing.
When you spend the first 11 years of your life in Ohio and then go to Texas, which NFL team do you end up rooting for?
I can't say I rooted for any of them. Like I said, I grew up in Columbus from 6 to 12, and when you're that age, you kind of just have like the nostalgic memories of the tradition of Ohio State. Being in that area. So everyone was a huge fan. I wasn't, but it was definitely. I would say that it didn't go away. I had a little bit of love in there for Ohio State always.
Who's your guy at receiver in the NFL? Like, we asked you about the corner, but who's like the receiver you look at and go, man, that's my guy, or I want to be like him? Yeah,
after this past season, I mean, it's got to be Kupp. He's on top of the world. He's got a Super Bowl championship, 2,000 yards. I mean, Super Bowl MVP. Like, he's the the best receiver in the league right now, in my opinion, him and Devontae Adams. So, those are 2 dudes I like to watch a lot.
You're the second guy in a row that kind of said those 2 names right there. Well, they got a similar game to you, really, in a lot of ways. Can play outside.
Appreciate that.
Looks like you're going to be a pretty good. I haven't really broken down film, but damn, you're going to be able to do slot and do all that stuff, right? You're comfortable in all those areas.
Yes, sir, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, do you prefer one or the other?
No, I wouldn't say I prefer anyone. So I feel like slot's a little easier. Just the way ball is. You got two-way goes, more field to work with. You're not getting as much pressed in college, at least. So slot's a little easier, but I like playing both. Like being able to do both.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, Garrett, we wish you all the best. Congratulations on your success so far, and it's an exciting time waiting to find out where you're going to start your NFL career, and we can't wait to see how it goes for you. Enjoy the rest of the Combine, and we hope to talk to you again down the road.
Yeah, me as well. Thank you all so much for having me.
Yeah, G-Dub.
Appreciate you. See you, Mr. Sims.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.